Hey, also my friends. So we're back, and today it's an important essay I wanted to share with you because you'll understand my thoughts on the Anglosphere, how to understand society, how to understand different cultures, Gramsci's ideas of cultural hegemony, but not really like, I like the Arctic Monkeys, but like also cultural diffusion as well. Like all these topics about culture and ideas, which I feel are important, and I think hopefully like a really smart thinkers find my essay and give it a fair treatment and say like, okay, I see what he's getting at. I see what he's trying to say. And yeah, I just wanted to share it because I think it's an important topic, and I think it's something that we should talk about at some point. So this is an essay on localism versus universalism. I'm just taking the Arctic Monkeys as an example. As I said, I like the band, and I think it's easy because I don't talk about things I don't like. I think it's easy because it's an easy example. Just like Degrassi, it's an easy example of a certain aesthetic. I feel like with the Arctic Monkeys, it's just easy. Like, okay, look, this is what I'm seeing, and how do we interpret that? So this is an essay on localism versus universalism, and the background question is, why do artists tour? And for some people, like, why do musicians tour? This is something obvious, but for me, it's not really obvious. It's in so much more intricate question, and there's more to it. So hey guys, I know for some people a question like this may be obvious, like why do musicians tour? But for me, it is a bit more intricate. Let me break it down. So I've noticed that some musicians do not always, but many times, tend to write about a specific city and use slang from that city. They also tend to talk about happenings that are specific to their city in a period in which they lived. The easiest example for me is the Arctic Monkeys. They write about their life in Sheffield. They talk about the worries, concerns, and aspirations of the people of Sheffield, at least in some of their albums they do. So I feel like in the one, whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not, they talk about that as well. And also, since we're talking about that whole Historia del Cronen with Mañas, I wanted to talk about how it relates to that, because I think he's trying to do something as well, his literary guidance, like he's trying to do something like how the people of Madrid talk in the 1990s. So it relates to that as well for all my fans who are watching the Cronin stuff. So this is all perfectly fine and makes sense. I like to add that their local fans are also very protective, not only of Arctic Monkeys, but also of similar bands which write about their hometown. So if you try to write about Screeching Weasel online and you say something that their fans don't like, they'll immediately say, well, that's not what it means, because I was there in 1990s where this song was written and it means this a specific meaning. But anyway, this is not exclusively of the Arctic Monkeys, so people don't think I have anything against the band. I actually like the band. That's why I'm sharing it, because like things I don't like, I don't share. But like, I think they're just an easy example to try to point out this type of culture that I'm seeing. So where they believe that the lyrics are very specific and only have one meaning, which could be interpreted through the lens of a culture where the album was made in. So then again, this makes sense, but only under certain conditions. So if you guys studied philosophy and analytic philosophy and all these theories that I've studied, like it made me think that, okay, it makes sense under certain conditions. So if we interpret a work by a product that is meant to be consumed by the people of Sheffield and maybe England at large, given how Sheffield is in England, people who are from the same country might relate to each other. Then it makes sense if the Arctic Monkeys or a similar band make an album for their audience. So they're making a very culturally specific product, and this is what I get at later. So yet groups like Arctic Monkeys do tour many other places, even when they weren't that famous. So this is something that I've seen, like Arctic Monkeys, like they tour around Europe and other countries as well, even when they weren't that famous. So let's say Canada. So here, and for the people who are like into the whole Scott Pilgrim, like I'll just say Scott Pilgrim generation, here they have the same language, like Canada is English speaking and somewhat similar culture, like a lot of British people settle in Canada and they share a similar culture, even more so between Canada and the UK than the UK and America. But I can bet that teenagers and young adults in Canada are slightly different than in Sheffield, have different aspirations, concerns, and desires. For instance, Canada is really cold and it's always snowing. things like that. So the geography is different to begin with. So, however, given that they share a similar language, is it possible for them to be culturally for them to culturally decode the Arctic monkeys? So what I'm saying is, and for all the people who read Scott Pilgrim as well, it seems like I'm confident that the Canadians can culturally decode the Arctic monkeys and understand what they're trying to say, even if they don't share the Sheffield slang. Like they can do their own research and figure it out since they have a sort of similar culture. And at the same time, Arctic monkeys also tour other European countries, like let's say France, Germany, Spain. Here, most people don't speak the same language as they do, and they don't share the same culture either. Hence, why would Arctic monkeys play at venues there? Especially since their product is not meant to be universalist, but rather localist. And this is something that is very interesting for me because I still don't get it. Like maybe from a financial sense it makes sense, but like from a cultural sense, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, like people in like Germany, France, Spain, like they don't have that language, like they don't share that culture. Yeah, like, and also like again, this the product the Arctic monkeys are sharing, it's very localist, right? The product the Screeching Whistle is sharing is very localist. Like it's meant to be understand under certain lenses in a specific culture. And that's what I'll talk about in the following paragraph. So, and back to that Croning stuff. So, you guys say, so imagine, I'll even go further. Imagine you're a young adult in Madrid. So, say you live in Madrid and you're hearing the Arctic Monkeys at a concert. Even if you speak English fluently, like you learn English in Madrid, and all right, fine, and then it's all good. But then you might likely misinterpret the lyrics simply by virtue of not being from Sheffield, and you don't speak that Sheffield slang, nor are you familiar with the surroundings, like the bars from Sheffield. Like a bunch of the Arctic Monkeys songs, like Fake Tales of San Francisco, they talk about Sheffield and like the bars there. You might be able to relate to it and say, well, I've been to bars around Madrid. Hence, my experience might be similar or analogous to the ones of the Arctic Monkeys. Yet, if you meet the Arctic Monkeys fans and a lot of other people online who are fans of this independent music, they tell you that no, like that's not what the lyrics mean. Like it's not what you want it to mean, and it's not an analogous experience. Like it's very like matter of fact, and they'll say like, oh, it can only mean this. There's this bar in Sheffield, and it used to work from 8 to like 2 a.m. or something, and the song is referring to that, and that's it. Like there's no room for interpretation. There's no room for you to put your own thoughts and ideas. So it's curious. Like, and how could you be a fan? So these are just questions that I ask myself. If this product is so localized as opposed to universalist, that it's not meant for everybody, then how could you be a fan of something that you can't understand? And this is the first thing, because like the Monkeys fans are other people's fans from those types of communities, of the indie communities. Like they're saying, well, like this is not what it means. So how could you understand? Yeah, like how could you be a fan of something like that to begin with if you can't really relate to it? And they're telling you, well, you can't because you're not from this specific city. So I'll even go further and ask, how could you be a fan of something that was not meant for you? And this is something that, to me, is very important, and maybe touches on Gramsci's themes of culture. Like maybe some cultural diffusion. Like, okay, we live in a society where cultures mixed and stuff, but I guess a product like at least the first Arctic Monkeys product, an album, was meant for their specific audience in their hometown. So how could you be a fan of something like that was not meant for you? And it's something I still wonder. And people might say like, but not really, because once you meet the fans or once you meet other people in that community, like they seem to not be like free-spirited people. They seem to be much more like closed minded and say like, no, it means this, and if you disagree, you're wrong. Like they're much more like close in spirit. But like it's not everybody, of course. There's some wonderful people like who just want to share, and you know what I mean. But that's not everybody. Like, so why would the Arctic Monkeys tour all these other countries if they wanted their lyrics to only be interpreted in a single way? So this is a challenge for some people. Like yeah, like if the Arctic Monkeys want to tour all around the world, that's great and stuff. And but why would they or their fans want their lyrics to only mean something very specific, in a very single way, and anyone who disagrees with that reading, like, it's immediately wrong, And I don't really know. I have to study history, like more musical history, but I don't really know, like, who said that, well, lyrics only need to have one meaning, and it's this specific meaning. It seems much more of an anthropological quest, to try to decode the lyrics, as opposed to a literary, where you can have your new interpretations, your new meanings, especially since the Arctic Monkeys are touring Madrid or Paris or Berlin, like, people who are the fans of the band will want to give their own meanings, their own memories with the songs, like, why should everything be so rigid? But it's very interesting, guys, and I think these are all ideas and topics which Gramsci has talked about, and cultural diffusion, hegemonies, and all these ideas. Like, and I think it's important because I feel like there's dialogue there that needs to be had, because it's interesting, because, like, a lot of this was meant, at least these indie communities and stuff, they tend to be very close, not only to, like, people from the outside, from other countries, but also to people from the inside, from their own cities, like some of these independent communities, from what I've seen, like, they tend to be like an insiders outsiders mindset, like, hey, we're the insiders, we know, we like this band, and if you don't like them, then you're not in the know, like, and like they tend to be like that. Like, it's gonna vary between communities, and maybe, like, yeah, maybe the Monkeys community isn't as bad, but, like, it's just like they're the easiest example to do, guys, you know what I mean? Like, another example could be like certain rappers, like, they sing very, like, local based music, but I feel like there's a lot more in this discussion. I'm only touching on the surface because that's what I understand now, the surface, but I feel like there's so much more that we could be talking about. How does art work? How do we interpret art? How do we interpret art across different cultures and languages as well? Like, and how different cultures influence each other. And these are all topics that I'm fascinated with. That's what I'm sharing it with you guys. And I think there's more digging to be done. There's more to say. And again, I like the Arctic Monkeys. I'm really happy for their success, and, like, I wish them the best. Like, I'm not trying to, like, diss them or anything like that, because that's very negative. Like, I really like the band, and that's what, like, I wanted to share, because I feel they're, like, the easiest example, and example that most people will understand, like, what I'm trying to communicate, because some of these ideas are difficult, to explain. But anyway, my friends, thank you very much. And again, if you haven't listened to Arctic Monkeys, listen to their songs. And yeah, especially, like, A Certain Romance was really good. And again, that talks about a very specific cultural meaning. And Mardi Bum, that's also very good, very catchy song. So definitely listen to them, and keep on listening to music. All right, my friends. So hope you enjoyed this essay, and I hope to share more like this in the future, because it's very important. And if you're, like, an academic wondering about all these topics, feel free to leave your comment down there and try to share your thoughts and based on the observations I'm getting at. But thank you very much, guys. Take care.